My name is Detective James Collins. I was chasing shadows, but what came next shattered everything I knew about this world. I wasn't supposed to die. I was just doing my job, just like every other day, tracking down elusive clues in the Idaho student murders, piecing together fragments of a case that seemed to haunt me at every corner. It felt like a storm I couldn't escape, pulling me deeper into its fury. But that night, I crossed a line I never meant to. A line between this world and the next. I remember the exact moment, how it felt like time held its breath. I had just followed a lead, narrowing down the distance. I was getting closer. The answers were just within my reach. Then, in the blink of an eye, I was on the ground, my heart failing me. 1 second, I was chasing the truth. The next, I was no longer part of this world. What happened next, though, is what haunts me still. I didn't die, not in the way I expected. There was no darkness. No endless void. No peace. I didn't feel the familiar pull of unconsciousness. I felt the presence of something more. Something that called me from a place I couldn't understand, couldn't even name. I was suspended, floating in a place between life and death, where the rules of this world no longer applied. And in that moment, something sacred touched my soul. He called my name in the dark. I heard it clearly, not as a whisper, but as a truth so deep, so powerful, that it felt like the very air around me vibrated with its weight. And I knew then that the work I was doing, the case I was chasing, was not finished. Not by a long shot. The Idaho case isn't done. What I saw in the afterlife is just the beginning. I was shown things that I can barely comprehend. A story far greater than any human mind could fathom. I made a vow, and now that I've returned, I have to fulfill it. I have to share what I witnessed, even if it means carrying a burden too heavy to bear. You have to listen. What you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew. The answers, they are not here yet, but they're coming. The Idaho case isn't done. Stay with me, because what I have to say is vital. There is something far greater at work than what we see, and it begins with the truth that I was shown. If you listen, if you understand, you might just be able to see what I saw, and perhaps even change the course of everything. I wasn't always the man you see now. No, before the veil was lifted, I was just a man, struggling to make sense of a world filled with confusion and darkness. I remember the mornings when I would rise before the sun, with only the faintest hint of its light creeping through the blinds. My hands would still be shaking from the restless hours spent sifting through case files, trying to connect dots that were never meant to be connected. I had a family, a wife, Linda, and 2 children, Josh and Emma. They were my anchor, my reason for coming home after the endless hours of work. Linda was always there, a quiet strength. She never asked questions about the cases I brought home, never pressed me to share the weight I carried. She knew. She knew that the job would consume me if I let it. And sometimes it did. I remember her asking me once, in the stillness of the evening, "James, why do you do this? Why do you chase shadows?" And in that moment, I couldn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't even know why anymore. I was just driven. The case was all-consuming. Every piece of evidence felt like a puzzle with missing pieces. The Idaho student murders, they haunted me. Those faces, those young lives torn apart, they stayed with me in the silence of the night. I could see their eyes, even when I closed my own. It wasn't just a case, it was a weight on my soul. I thought about them all the time. I thought about the family members, the friends, the lives that would never be the same. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't leave it unfinished. The truth, it felt like something just out of reach, like a whisper in the wind, so faint, so distant. I tried to follow it, time and time again, but it always slipped through my fingers. It felt like chasing the wind, like searching for something buried too deep to find. But still, I persisted. I was a man driven by something more than duty. I wasn't just chasing a murderer. I was chasing redemption. For them, for myself, for this world that seemed so dark and broken. I believed in justice. I believed in bringing light to the shadows. And yet, the deeper I went into this case, the more I felt the darkness pressing against me, clawing at my soul. I would lay awake at night, my heart heavy with the weight of the unknown. I couldn't sleep, couldn't escape. The case consumed every waking thought. And yet there was still something missing. Some part of me that I couldn't quite grasp. I was trying to fix the world when my own soul was fractured. I remember a night, late into the investigation, when I stood in the middle of my kitchen, staring at the blank walls, a pile of unsolved clues before me. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from exhaustion, emotional and physical. I had reached the end of my rope, and yet something inside of me still clung to the belief that I was meant to find the answers. I was just a man trying to make sense of a world filled with confusion and darkness. I had no answers. Just questions. Endless questions. And then, on that fateful night, when the weight of it all became too much to bear, I found myself at the crossroads of life and death. The chase for answers had led me to the edge, where I no longer felt like I was living but merely existing. I didn't realize it then, but I was about to cross a line that would change everything. But before all of that, there was still the ordinary, fragile world I inhabited. The one with my wife, my kids, and the endless grind of day-to-day life. The world that seems so far away now, as I drift in the current of memory and eternity. And as I look back, I see it with a clearer perspective. I see the gap that existed between who I was and who I was meant to be. And so, I worked, driven by the deep, unrelenting need for answers. I didn't know it yet, but I was running towards something I couldn't outrun. He was calling me. I was just a man chasing shadows, but those shadows were all that stood between me and the truth. The toll it took on me was slow and steady, like a river carving its path through stone. I didn't notice it at first, the way my mind began to fray, the way my soul began to wither. But I see it now, clearer than ever. It wasn't just the case that had me, it was the darkness inside me too. The part of me that was reaching for something higher, something greater, but didn't know how to find it. I had no idea then that what I was looking for was not a person or a clue. I was searching for something far deeper. I was looking for a truth that could heal me, not just the case. I was looking for peace in the midst of this chaos, but I didn't know where to find it. The darkness that pressed against my soul wasn't just the case, it was everything. So I kept going, kept running towards something I couldn't see, kept chasing those shadows until the moment I stopped running and felt something pull me into the light. Something I couldn't understand, couldn't explain. Something far beyond me. The case wasn't over. But my journey was just beginning. That night, when death came, it wasn't just a physical end. It was the end of something deeper, of a man who no longer knew the way. But that end led me to something I could never have imagined. A truth that was waiting in the stillness, behind the veil. And I will never forget the first thing I heard as I crossed that line. He called my name in the dark. I was so close. I could feel it in my bones. The truth was on the edge of my grasp, just waiting to be pulled into the light. Every lead I followed, every piece of the puzzle I fit together, it was all leading me to something I couldn't yet see. The pressure was mounting, the weight of the case bearing down on me like a storm cloud that refused to dissipate. It was the kind of pressure that filled your lungs, made your breath shallow, like the world was pressing in on you, demanding answers you didn't have. I was in the field that night, just another lonely stretch of highway. I had finally found something that felt different. Something that had a ring of truth to it, like the sound of a bell echoing through an empty chamber. I was chasing a lead that could finally bring this case to its end, a clue that would light the darkness. I could feel it, so close, so near, like the last piece of the puzzle was finally going to fall into place. The truth was there, just a breath away. And then, it happened. One moment I was chasing that elusive truth, just a man on a mission, alive, driven, burning with purpose. And the next, it was as if the ground beneath me had disappeared, and I was falling into an abyss. I didn't know it was coming. One minute I was alive, and the next, nothing but peace. It was strange, almost too surreal to fully understand in the moment. One moment, my pulse was pounding in my chest, the world sharp and vivid with the sense of urgency. The next, I was floating above it all. The world below me, distant, like a fading memory, something I could no longer touch or grasp. There was no pain, no fear. I didn't even have time to be afraid. The moment my life faded away, it was as though the weight of it all was lifted, lightness that I had never known. I was free. Free from the constant grind, free from the pressure, the unanswered questions that had kept me awake for so many nights. I felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time in what felt like eternity, I felt peace. Peace. The kind of peace that wraps around your soul like a warm blanket on a cold night. It wasn't the peace of an easy life or a life without struggle. No. This peace was the kind that comes when the soul is finally set free, when everything is laid bare and nothing is hidden anymore. It was a peace that wasn't of this world. A peace that transcended understanding. But there was more to it. I didn't just feel peace. I felt a pull. It wasn't something I could explain, something I could put into words. It wasn't like I was falling into darkness. No, this was different. It felt like I was being drawn into the light. The light wasn't just something I could see. It was something I could feel. Every fiber of my being responded to it, a warmth that seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at once. There was no sound in this place, no echo of life or death, just a pure, unspoken connection to something greater than I could understand. It was as if I had become part of the very fabric of the universe, suspended between time and eternity. And in that stillness, in the silence that surrounded me, I began to hear it. A voice. Not a voice like any human voice. No, this was different. It was the sound of the universe itself, as if the very air around me was alive, filled with truth, wisdom, and love. He called my name in the dark. The words were more than just sound. They were light, they were weight, they were life itself. And in that moment I knew I wasn't alone. I wasn't just drifting away into nothingness. I was being called. There was something sacred in those words. Something that pierced the very core of my soul. It wasn't just a name. It was a summons. A calling that could not be ignored. James! I don't know how I knew it was my name, but I did. It wasn't spoken by a person. It was more like it had always been there, written into the very fabric of my being. And as I heard it, I felt the call to return. I wasn't meant to stay there, not yet. James! A second time, this time softer, but with more urgency, like the pull of something divine, something greater than anything I had ever known. I began to realize then that I was not just crossing into death, I was crossing into something much deeper. Something beyond the confines of this world. It was as if I was at the edge of two realities, teetering on the brink, where one world ended and another began. And as the voice grew stronger, I felt it. The warmth, the undeniable pull towards something divine. The light was no longer a mere presence in the distance. It was all around me. It surrounded me, filled me, beckoned me forward with a love so deep that it consumed every fear, every doubt, every struggle I had ever known. Come, the voice whispered. Come, my child. You have not yet finished your work. The words, spoken with a tenderness that I can't describe, felt like a balm to my wounded soul. They washed over me, healing places I didn't even know were broken. The burden of the case, the weight of unanswered questions, it all melted away, replaced by the knowledge that I was meant for something more, something greater. I wasn't ready to leave this place, not yet, not when I could feel the answers pulling me in, drawing me closer. But the light was stronger now, pressing me back toward the world I had left behind. I didn't understand it at the time, but now I do. The truth wasn't something I could grasp alone. It wasn't just in the case. It was in me, and it was meant for the world. "James, your time is not done." And with that, I felt myself being pulled back, away from the light, away from the peace. I was being drawn back into the weight of life, back into the world where shadows still lurked. But the voice stayed with me. The warmth stayed with me. As I drifted back into consciousness, the world felt heavy. The clarity of the light I had seen was now a faint glow, far off in the distance. But I could still feel it, deep inside of me, as if it had been planted there to grow, to lead me forward. "I will not leave you." The words lingered, echoing in my soul. And I knew, without a doubt, that I had been chosen for something I could never have imagined. Something greater than justice. Something greater than truth. I had returned to finish what I had started. But I was not the same man who had left. Something had changed in me, something that I couldn't put into words, something that went beyond the case, beyond the search for answers. I was no longer just a man chasing shadows. I was a man called to be the light. And the truth was waiting, just beyond the horizon. "The case isn't over." As I was pulled back, I felt the air around me shift. It was like a great weight had been lifted from my chest. The world I had known, the world of pain, struggle, and unfinished questions, began to dissolve into something far beyond the reach of my understanding. The heaviness I carried for so long, the burden of the case, the faces of the victims, the search for justice that never seemed to end, these things all fell away, like dust scattered by a soft wind. I felt lighter than I had ever felt in my life. The world around me blurred and faded, and for the first time, I understood what it was to be truly free. There was no rush, no urgency, just a deep, profound sense of peace. Peace. At last. It wasn't a peace I had ever known on earth. It wasn't the kind of fleeting calm you find after a long day's work, or the quiet that settles after a storm. No. This was something sacred. This peace was the peace of eternity. A peace that had no beginning and no end, no source but the very heart of the divine. As I was drawn deeper into this new realm, I noticed the air. It was different. Thicker, but not in a way that suffocated, it was pure. It felt like each breath I took filled me not just with air, but with life itself. It wasn't the kind of air you breathe with your lungs. It was the kind you feel in your soul. It was light, but not in the way light appears on earth, a simple reflection. No, this light was alive. It moved with me. It entered me, and I felt it to my very core. And the sounds of this place were unlike anything I had ever heard. They weren't music in the sense I knew, but something far deeper, more profound. It wasn't melodies played on instruments, or voices echoing across a room. It was like the hum of the universe itself, a sound so gentle, so beautiful, it made the very air tremble. There were whispers in the background, like a breeze brushing through the leaves, but the whispers carried weight, truths that spoke not with words, but with the very essence of the soul. "He called my name in the dark." The whisper repeated again and again, not as a name, but as a calling. I could hear it in every breath, every rustle of the air. It was as if the world itself was singing my name, urging me forward into the light. I began to see the light, not as a distant thing but as something I was drawn toward. It was overwhelming, consuming every thought and fear, until all that was left was a profound sense of awe. This light was not harsh. It was soft, enveloping. It wasn't blinding, it was illuminating, like a great and eternal truth unfolding before me. I saw things too. Shapes. Figures that stood in the light. They were not human, not in the way we understand humanity, but they were beings of such beauty, such grace. They radiated love, pure, unconditional love. There was no fear in their presence, no doubt. Only a deep, knowing peace. Their forms were not sharp or defined, they were like silhouettes in the mist, shifting and moving in a way that felt eternal. They did not speak with words. Their communication was through presence, through feeling. It was as if they could read my soul, and I could feel them understanding me. There was no judgment, no condemnation. There was only understanding, understanding that reached into the deepest, most broken places in my heart and healed them in an instant. One of the figures stepped forward, and though I could not see their face, I knew they were waiting for me. There was a knowing in their presence, a knowing that they were part of something much larger than I could comprehend. And though they said nothing, their presence spoke volumes. They didn't need words to convey what they wanted me to understand. They simply were. And as I looked into the light, I realized that I was part of them. A small piece of something so vast, so eternal, that it was beyond my understanding. There was no fear, only awe. It felt like coming home. I had come home. Not to a place, but to a truth. A truth that I had been searching for my whole life but had never been able to find. The peace I felt, the love that washed over me, was not a gift from these beings. It was a gift from the source of all life, all light. It was the divine presence, the eternal truth, waiting for me to recognize it. Time, I realized, no longer existed here. The concept of time that had bound me to earth, the ticking of clocks, the days that came and went, none of it mattered. There was only now. There was only being. And yet, within that timelessness, I began to understand something even deeper, that my life, my search for truth, my quest for answers, all of it was part of a greater story. A story that had no end. A story that was both mine and not mine, stretching across eternity. This was where everything began and ended, here, in the space between time and eternity. He called my name in the dark. And there it was again, that refrain, that whisper that echoed across the expanse. The call to return. The call to continue. The work was not done. The truth had not yet been fully revealed. I felt myself drawn forward, into the light, but the pull wasn't to stay. It was to return. To complete what had been started. I had been sent to do something. I had been sent to finish the work that was started, to speak the words that needed to be spoken. You are not finished. The words reverberated inside me, a call to action, a summons to a greater purpose than I could yet comprehend. As I was drawn back toward the world I had left behind, the light seemed to fade, but it never left me. It remained within me, a warmth in the depths of my soul. I knew now what I had been searching for, even if I didn't fully understand it. I had been shown the truth. And it was greater than I could ever have imagined. I didn't have all the answers. But I knew this: there was more to this world than what we see. There is more to life than what we feel, more to truth than what we can touch. We are all part of this vast, eternal story, and our work is not finished until we come face to face with the light that is calling us. And so I returned. I returned with a burning, urgent need to share what I had seen. The case was not done. The truth was not finished. He called my name in the dark. And now I am here. To speak what I have seen. To share the truth that I was shown, and to make sure you, too, hear the call. It was in that moment, as I stood at the precipice of the unknown, that the air around me changed. A shift. A stirring. It was subtle at first, like the brush of wind against my skin, but as the shift deepened, it became undeniable. The peace, the light, it all intensified. I had seen the beautiful beings, the flickers of divine presence, but this was different. He called my name in the dark. There was no longer any question in my mind as to where I was. The space between life and death had dissolved, and in its place, there was something far greater, something eternal. And then, before me, in that sacred, luminous stillness, he appeared. Jesus. I knew it instantly. It wasn't the form of a man, not as I would have expected, but more, a presence, a feeling. Something that stretched beyond any human understanding, and yet, it felt as though it had always been there, as though his presence had been waiting for me to recognize it all along. There was a softness to him, an overwhelming tenderness, yet there was authority, a power that shook the very foundations of my soul. When he spoke, his voice was both calm and commanding. There was no need for words to feel the weight of his presence. It wasn't an echo of sound, it was the voice of the universe itself, a voice that resonated within me and around me, shaking my very essence. My child, you are not yet finished. The work you started on earth is not over. The words sank into me like a seed planted in fertile soil, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. I felt like I had been brought here, to this moment, not by accident, but by divine purpose. His gaze didn't just look at me, it pierced through me, through the layers of my being, into the depths of my heart. He knew everything, the struggles, the doubts, the burdens I had carried. He knew them, not from hearing about them, but from living with them, from seeing them as clearly as the light that surrounded us. What is hidden will be revealed in time. The truth will break through, no matter how deep the darkness runs. The words were simple, yet they carried the weight of eternity. It was as if he had known the depth of my search, the way I had been digging, relentlessly pursuing answers that I thought would heal the world. But now, as I stood in his presence, I understood. The case, the endless investigation, the darkness that had clouded everything, was only a piece of something much larger, much more significant. There was no fear in his words, only understanding. The tenderness in his voice was something I can never fully convey, but it was the kind of tenderness that wraps around your heart and heals wounds you didn't even know you had. He spoke of justice, not as something to be attained through force or punishment, but as something that would come through truth. And the truth would rise, no matter how deeply it was buried. The truth will break through, no matter how deep the darkness runs. These words carried an urgency with them, an urgency not of fear, but of divine inevitability. I had always believed that justice could be achieved through action, through uncovering the truth in a case, through solving a crime. But he showed me. There is a justice far beyond human understanding. It is a justice that comes from a place of purity, of divine order, and it cannot be thwarted by any of the shadows we see in this world. As he spoke, the truth of the Idaho case unfolded before me in a way that was beyond comprehension. I saw it all, not just the pieces of the investigation, but the why behind the darkness. I saw the patterns in the fabric of the universe, the ways in which every action ripples outward, affecting everyone and everything. What I had believed was isolated, a tragedy to be solved by law enforcement, was part of a much larger tapestry. I saw the connections between this case and others, between the present and the past, and I saw how every moment of suffering was part of a divine plan, a plan that could not be undone. What is hidden will be revealed in time. The words echoed in my soul, a constant refrain, as if the universe itself was singing this truth to me. I felt a weight lift from me, the weight of trying to understand it all. I didn't need to understand. I needed to trust. I needed to walk forward in faith, knowing that the truth would come to light in its own time. The truth will break through. And in that moment, I knew what I had to do. I was not here merely to chase the shadows of this case. No, I was here to share this truth with the world. The light I had witnessed in the spiritual realm was not just a vision for me, it was a call for humanity. A call to return to what is true, to seek the light that can pierce the deepest darkness. Jesus didn't just speak of the Idaho case, he spoke of the world. The case was not just about finding answers, it was about finding redemption. It was about understanding that the darkness that surrounds us, the injustices, the pain, the suffering, are not final. They are not the end. They are but temporary shadows in the light of God's eternal love and justice. The work you started on earth is not over. Those words burned in my chest as I stood before him, knowing that I had made a vow to share this divine encounter with the world, to be his voice in the midst of confusion. It wasn't just a case that needed resolution. It was the souls of everyone who had been touched by this darkness, by this tragedy, who needed to know the truth. The truth that God is just. The truth that there is light even in the deepest shadows. His presence, so overwhelming, so filled with love and grace, made me feel like I was not alone in this journey. The darkness would not win. The truth would be revealed, piece by piece, until the final piece fell into place. And I would be there, standing in the light, as a witness to it all. The words he spoke were more than just a promise. They were a command. And I knew that I had to obey. I had been chosen, not to be the hero, not to solve the case on my own, but to speak the truth. To call the world to the light. What is hidden will be revealed in time. I stood in his presence, knowing that this was my mission. This was my purpose. The world had to know, there is no darkness too deep that the light cannot reach it. There is no soul too lost that the truth cannot find it. The truth will break through. And as his presence faded, I knew one thing for certain. I had seen the divine hand of justice, and I had been chosen to carry that message forward. To tell the world what I had been shown. He called my name in the dark. And now, I call you to listen. To hear the truth. The truth that will set you free, that will heal the brokenness of this world. The work is not done. It has just begun. As the light from the divine presence faded and the whispers of eternity began to retreat, a silence settled around me, a silence that felt too heavy to bear, yet too sacred to interrupt. In that quiet, in that stillness, I felt something stirring deep within me. A shift. A pull, so gentle yet powerful, like a hand on my soul, guiding me towards the truth. The words that Jesus had spoken were still reverberating in my chest. What is hidden will be revealed in time. They echoed through me, a sacred rhythm that began to pulse with life, breathing truth into the depths of my being. And then, suddenly, I was no longer standing in the ethereal space where I had seen him. I was shown what I had not seen before, shown the depth of the case that I thought I knew so well. The darkness of the Idaho case, the violence, the grief, the unhealed wounds, it was not just the result of one man's actions. No. It was a battle. A spiritual battle between light and darkness, between truth and the lies that had shrouded it. The perpetrators of such evil were not mere human monsters. They were instruments of something far older, far deeper, something that had been woven into the very fabric of the world, silently, insidiously, for generations. The case is not over. It has only just begun. Those words hit me with the weight of a thunderclap. The case I had been so driven to solve, the case that had consumed me for so long, was part of a much larger spiritual battle, a cosmic struggle that transcended time and place. I realized then that my work, our work, was not merely to uncover the criminal. It was to unravel a darkness that had festered beneath the surface of society for too long. A darkness that threatened to consume everything in its path. Jesus had shown me something so profound, so chilling. In the depths of the vision, I saw not just the faces of the victims, not just the shattered lives of those left behind, but I saw their souls. I saw them, bathed in the light of divine love, rising above the violence that had broken their bodies. I saw their redemption unfolding, not as an immediate resolution, but as a slow, sacred process that could not be rushed. The darkness that clouded this world will not hold forever. I saw the light breaking through. The vision shifted, and I saw the perpetrator, the face of the one who had committed this heinous crime. But as the face came into view, it wasn't just a person. It was an embodiment of the lies that had twisted his heart, the darkness that had gripped his soul. I saw it not as a single individual, but as something far greater, an evil that had been allowed to flourish in the shadows for too long. But in that moment, I understood. I understood that this battle was not one that could be fought with weapons or force alone. It was a spiritual war. The truth was the weapon. God's justice would be the sword that cut through the darkness. And it would cut through. The perpetrator's true face would be revealed, and the darkness that had hidden him would be swept away in time, in God's time. I felt a deep spiritual charge, a charge so powerful that it coursed through me like fire. The darkness that clouded this world will not hold forever. I repeated it to myself, over and over again, until I could feel the very air around me crackling with energy. I was not just a man anymore. I was a vessel of divine truth, an instrument of light in a world consumed by shadows. As the vision unfolded, I saw the victims, their souls, their spirits, moving toward the light. It wasn't just their deaths that mattered. It was the lives they had lived. It was the way their stories would ripple through time, inspiring others to seek the truth, to fight for justice, to break the cycle of darkness. The light is breaking through. I felt it in my soul. The world was not finished. The case was not over. This battle had just begun. The redemption of the victims was not something that could be rushed. It was a process, a slow unfolding of divine justice, of love breaking through hatred, of light pushing back against the darkness. It was a holy war, not of blood and fire, but of truth and love. The truth would be revealed. The perpetrator's mask would fall. And in the end, justice would reign, not just in the case, but in the hearts of all who were touched by it. As the vision continued, I saw the wider implications. This wasn't just a single case. This was a part of a larger wave, one that would rise and sweep through the world. The world would be shaken by the truth. People would rise to confront the darkness, to expose the lies that had kept them blind for so long. The truth would break through, no matter how deep the darkness ran. What is hidden will be revealed in time. I felt the power of those words. It was not just a promise. It was a declaration. The truth was coming, and nothing could stop it. Not time. Not evil. Not the shadows that had held sway for so long. God's justice was already unfolding. The wheels of divine truth were turning, and they would not be stopped. And in that moment I understood my role. I had been chosen. Not to solve the case, not to be the hero, but to bear witness. I was to carry the truth, to share it with the world. The work I had started on earth, this investigation, this pursuit of justice, it was not over. It had only just begun. I was the vessel. And I had been called to serve a higher purpose. As I stood there in the light, feeling the weight of this sacred truth, I knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult. But I also knew this: I was no longer walking alone. The light had come. And it would never be extinguished. The case is not over. It has only just begun. And now, it is time to walk forward, to fulfill the vow I made. The darkness will not hold forever. The light is breaking through. And nothing can stand in its way. In the quiet, in the space between breaths, I felt the call rise again. This time, it was different. This time, it wasn't just a whisper, but a clarion cry. It echoed through the chambers of my heart, reverberating deep within me, resounding like a divine anthem that could not be ignored. The truth will break through. But it wasn't just the truth of this case that would break through. No. It was something larger, something far more significant than anything I had ever considered. As I stood in that sacred light, something unfolded before me, a vision, a future that had not yet arrived but was already stirring, waiting to come into being. It began softly, like the first rays of dawn breaking over a darkened horizon, gentle yet undeniable. I saw the world, our world, gripped in its struggles, its divisions, its shadows. The world was fragmented, torn between its need for truth and its fear of what truth might cost. People were lost in confusion, searching for answers in all the wrong places, clinging to the illusions of control, of power, of self-reliance. I saw the pain, the suffering, the deep aching in the hearts of humanity. And then, something shifted. The image before me rippled, like a wave sweeping over the surface of a still pond, and what I saw next took my breath away. I saw light. A light that was not just in the heavens, not just in a distant place, but in the hearts of people. Hearts waking up, hearts stirring with a force so powerful, so real, that it threatened to shake the foundations of the world. The truth will break through. It was as though the very souls of men and women began to awaken, as if the veil that had clouded their understanding was lifted in an instant. I saw people coming together, united by something deeper than political ideologies, deeper than national borders. They were united by the truth that no longer could be hidden, no longer could be ignored. It was a spiritual awakening, a collective reckoning, and it was spreading, growing, touching every corner of the earth. I saw it, felt it in my bones, a shift, a movement of the spirit that was awakening hearts, stirring souls to rise. The world will change when we confront the truth, when we stand together in faith. But this was no ordinary revolution. This was not a rebellion born of anger or violence, but one born of faith, faith in something greater than ourselves. It was the awakening of a world to a divine call, to God's call for righteousness, for justice, for truth. Justice, I realized, was not a mere human construct. It was a divine reality, a force that would wash over the earth like a cleansing flood, restoring and renewing everything it touched. The world will change when we confront the truth, when we stand together in faith. And as I stood in the light of this vision, I felt the weight of what had been revealed to me. The future was not set. The world had not yet made its choice. But the seeds had been planted. And I understood deeply that the change begins in the hearts of the people, in each soul, in every individual. This vision, this awakening, would not come from the top down, from governments or systems. No. It would come from the ground up, from each person waking up to the truth of who they are, to the truth of the divine purpose within them. The case I had spent so many sleepless nights chasing, the darkness I had tried to illuminate with my own human efforts, it was only a small part of this great awakening. The light I had seen was not just for me. It was for the world. The victims of the Idaho case, their souls, they had not just been lost to tragedy, they had become part of this awakening. Their sacrifice, their pain, would not be in vain. It would fuel the fire of truth, spark the flame of justice, and awaken the hearts of many. And then, I was shown the future. It was not a grand spectacle. It was not a sweeping, global revolution that toppled governments and institutions. No. It was something far quieter, far more intimate, yet infinitely more powerful. It was hearts and souls, one by one, turning toward the light, realizing that they, too, could be part of something greater than themselves. I saw individuals, families, communities, coming together, not as perfect people, but as people of faith, seeking truth, seeking justice, seeking love. I felt the truth settle deep into my spirit. The shift had already begun. The question was no longer whether the world would change. It was whether we, as individuals, would embrace that change. The question was no longer whether truth would break through. It was whether we would have the courage to face it. The world will change when we confront the truth, when we stand together in faith. In that moment, the vision began to fade, but the power of it remained, etched into my very being. I knew what I had to do. I knew that I could not stand by and watch the world drift deeper into its sleep. The time to act is now. The time to wake up is now. And so, I stand before you now, with this sacred charge upon my soul, not just to share what I have seen, but to call you, to call all of us, to take action. To confront the darkness, to stand together in the light of truth, and to let that light break through, not just in our world, but in our own hearts. The change begins here. The change begins now. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones who must rise. We are the ones who must stand in faith. The world will change when we confront the truth, when we stand together in faith. This is the calling. This is the truth. This is the awakening. And now, it is time to answer. I came back. I don't know how else to say it. I returned to the world, to the chaos, to the weight of human existence that I had left behind, but everything felt different now. Every breath, every movement, was tinged with a deep sense of knowing, of weight. I had seen the light, and I had been chosen to carry it back into the shadows. But what I didn't anticipate was how that light would burn me. How heavy the truth would feel when I tried to share it. The first few days were a blur. I remember walking through the familiar halls of my home, the sound of my footsteps on the floor, the murmur of my family, but none of it felt real. I had seen eternity, had stood in the presence of divine justice, and here, in this small, fleeting world, everything seemed so insignificant. Yet I could not shake the urgency, the fire that burned inside me. The truth that had been revealed to me, could not be held back. I could feel it in my chest, pressing against the walls of my ribs, demanding to be spoken. I came back, but the world is not ready. I could feel the weight of the revelation, a burden I never asked for but had been entrusted with. It felt like a cross I was being asked to bear. The truth, I knew, would not be easily accepted. It would shake people to their very core, and there would be resistance. Not just from the world, but from within me. I thought I could walk back into the life I had left behind. I thought I could return to my old self, to the man I was before I glimpsed eternity. But that man no longer existed. He was gone, burned away by the fire of what I had witnessed. I could no longer see the world with the same eyes, and I could not unsee the things I had been shown. The veil had been lifted, and I could no longer live in the ignorance I once had. But as I began to speak, to share what I had seen, what I had been entrusted with, the resistance came. Not from the darkness of the world alone, but from within. It was as if the forces of unseen powers, forces I could not name, were pushing back, trying to silence me. There were the subtle whispers of doubt. What if you're wrong? What if they don't believe you? There were the dismissive looks, the scoffs, the quick gestures of disbelief. I could feel the weight of their skepticism pressing against me like a wall of stone. The world is not ready. I came back with a message far too heavy for most to carry. A truth too raw for them to hear. And yet I had made a vow to share what I had been shown. The truth will be a burden, a cross I must bear. I knew this. But the struggle, the struggle, was like nothing I had ever faced before. I felt torn between two worlds, two realms. The light of divine understanding that burned so brightly within me and the darkness of this physical world, a world full of distractions, lies, and half-truths. Every time I tried to speak, I felt the weight of that struggle, the tension between the two forces. The truth is a sword, and I must wield it. But wielding that sword was not easy. It wasn't just a matter of speaking the words, it was living them, breathing them, embodying them in every moment. It was standing in the face of all that would try to silence me, all that would try to diminish the power of the light I had seen. I had been given a mission, a calling, but I had to fight to remain faithful to it. I must speak, even if they do not understand. There were moments when the darkness seemed so overwhelming, so pervasive, that I wondered if it was worth it. When the weight of the world pressed against my chest, and the truth felt like a burden too heavy to bear. When I wanted to retreat, to forget the call, to go back to a life where I didn't know what I knew, where I wasn't responsible for carrying this light. But in those moments, I would hear it again. He called my name in the dark. The voice echoed in my soul, reminding me that this was my purpose now. The path ahead was not easy. I would face resistance, I would face ridicule, I would face doubt. But the truth I carried was not my own to keep. It was a flame meant to be shared, to burn in the hearts of others, to ignite a fire that would spread across the world. The truth will break through. There were days when I felt small, insignificant, just another voice in a sea of noise. But then I would remember the light. The light that had filled me when I crossed over, the light that was still within me, still guiding me. The truth will break through. I had been called to be a vessel of that truth, not to keep it hidden but to share it with the world, to let it burn away the lies and the darkness. The world may not be ready, but I had no choice. I had to speak, I had to act, because the truth could not wait. I must speak, even if they do not understand. The darkness will fight back. The world will push against me. But I will not be silent. I will not retreat. I will speak the truth, and I will trust that in time, the light will break through, no matter how deep the darkness runs. And in those moments when the weight of it all feels too much to bear, when the doubts begin to creep in, I remember, he called my name in the dark. That truth, that call, is my anchor. And I will stand, no matter the cost. I will speak, I will carry the light, and I will bear the truth. The case is not done. Neither is the work God has set before us. I have spoken of what I saw, of the revelations that shook me to my very core, and now, in the quiet, in the stillness of what has been revealed to me, I must speak plainly. I cannot hold this truth inside any longer. It is not mine to keep. The burden is too great to remain silent. And so I must share it with you, with everyone who will listen. The case, the investigation I once thought was simply about uncovering a murderer, about piecing together clues, finding justice for the victims, was never just about that. The case was a symbol of a world lost in darkness, a world desperately seeking truth and justice but struggling to find its way. The darkness is real, yes, but the light is more real still. And I have seen it. I have felt it. I have walked in it. The case is not done. Neither is the work God has set before us. This is not just a story about a tragedy. This is not just a case to be solved. This is a call to awaken. A call for all of us. Every single one of us, to face the truth. The truth that is so often hidden in plain sight, buried beneath the lies we tell ourselves, beneath the fear that keeps us shackled to our comfort zones. The truth that we are not meant to live in darkness, that we are not meant to be divided, fighting against each other. We are meant for more. The work God has set before us is not finished. The work is only beginning. You see, I came back from that place, back from the light I had touched, but I did not return unchanged. I cannot be unchanged. None of us can be, once we have seen the truth. We cannot go back to the way we were. That is the price of awakening, the realization that what we once accepted as truth is nothing but illusion. The only truth that matters is the one that cannot be denied. The truth that comes from the Gospels. The truth that comes from Christ. The time for hesitation has passed. The time for action is now. I feel this deep in my soul. It burns within me like a fire that cannot be extinguished. The time is now. We can no longer afford to wait, to delay, to pretend that the world is not in desperate need of transformation. Every moment we hesitate is a moment lost. Every moment we delay in seeking the truth is another moment spent in the darkness. But the darkness does not have to win. The light will break through. And it is not enough to wait for the world to change. No. The change begins with you. The change begins with me, with each one of us taking responsibility, turning toward the truth, and embracing the light that has been revealed to us. We cannot sit idly by, waiting for someone else to do it. We are called to stand in the light, to be the light. Christ is calling us. Come back to the light. That is the call. Come back to the light. It is the light of truth, the light of redemption, the light of grace. The light that will not judge you for what you have done but will heal you, will lift you up, will transform you into something new. The time has come to return to Him. The time has come to stop pretending that we can fix the world without Him. We cannot. We are not meant to walk this path alone. God is calling you home. Will you answer? The question is simple, yet it is the most important question you will ever face. Will you answer? Will you step out of the darkness and into the light? Will you let go of the lies you've told yourself, the illusions that have kept you shackled, and will you embrace the truth that has the power to change everything? This is not just about faith, it's about action. Faith is not something we profess with our lips alone. Faith must be lived. It must be walked out, day by day, step by step. It is not enough to speak the words. You must live them. You must take the truth into the world. You must be the light in a world that desperately needs it. There is a great battle ahead of us, and it is not one fought with fists or weapons. It is a battle fought with love, with truth, with righteousness. It is a battle that will not be won by human hands alone, but through the power of God working through us. The light will break through, and we must be the vessels of that light. The case is not done. Neither is the work God has set before us. This is not a battle for tomorrow. It is a battle for today. We must wake up now. We must rise, each of us, and take our place in the fight for justice, for truth, for redemption. We must no longer be content with the world as it is. We must be the ones to bring change. The world will change when we confront the truth. The world will change when we stand together in faith, in love, in righteousness. The world will change when we refuse to be silent any longer, when we speak the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be, no matter how much resistance we face. The time has come. The time for action is now. And so I ask you, will you answer? Will you take up the mantle, embrace the truth, and stand in the light? The darkness will not hold forever. The light is coming, and it will break through. But the question remains, will you be ready to walk in it? Come back to the light. Will you answer? Will you return to the fire of truth, to the flame of God's justice, and let it burn away the darkness? The choice is yours. The time is now. There is something about life, about this journey we walk, that makes it impossible to understand, at least while we're still on the path. We search for meaning in the chaos, in the noise, in the struggle. But so often we miss it. We miss the truth that is right there, hidden beneath the surface of our busy lives. We search for answers outside, but the answers have always been within us. He called my name in the dark. When I died, when I crossed that threshold between life and eternity, I thought I had seen the end. But I was wrong. Death does not mark the end of the journey. It is a moment of transformation, a crossing over into a new understanding. And I realized then, in the presence of the divine, that the answers I had been searching for were not meant to be solved by logic or by human hands. They were meant to be revealed through faith, through truth, through love. The work I've been given, the burden I carry, is not just mine to bear. It is a calling for all of us. The veil has been lifted, and we are now standing at the crossroads, facing the truth that we have been hiding from for far too long. We can no longer afford to stand idly by. The time to act is now. The time to step into the light is now. But I have to ask myself, and I ask you to ask yourself too, what will we do with this second chance? What will we do with the time we've been given? The world has been waiting for us to awaken. For us to stand, not in the darkness, but in the light. I was given a second chance, a chance to stand in truth. Will you take yours? It's a question that cuts to the heart, isn't it? Will you step into the light? Will you take the truth that has been given to you, the truth that calls you to rise, to fight for justice, for love, for righteousness? Will you bear the burden of the cross, as I have been called to do, and speak out in the face of resistance, knowing that the darkness will not hold forever? The case, the work, it is not finished. It has only just begun. There is more to be done. There is more to be healed. There are more souls to be touched. The truth will break through. It must. It will. The case is not done. The work has just begun. I have walked through the fire. I have seen the darkness, and I have seen the light. The light is real. It is alive. It is more real than anything we experience here. And we, you and I, are meant to walk in that light. We are meant to rise. We are meant to fight for truth, for justice, for love. And we cannot wait for someone else to do it. The work is ours. But the question, the haunting question that lingers is this: will we answer the call? Will we step forward in faith, in obedience, and allow the light to transform us? Will we speak the truth, even when the world tries to silence us? Will we embrace the mission, knowing that it is not about us, but about something much greater than we can comprehend? In the quiet, in the stillness, I hear his voice once more. He called my name in the dark. It's a calling we all hear, in one way or another. The question is, will we respond? And as I stand here, as I speak these words, I am reminded that I am not the only one who has been given a second chance. You have been given a second chance too. A chance to step into the light, to embrace the truth, to stand for justice, for love, for redemption. The work is not done. The case is not over. It has only just begun. The truth will break through. And so I leave you with this: will you take the chance? Will you answer the call? The time is now. The time for hesitation has passed. The time to step into the light has come. The case is not done. The work has just begun. The case is not done. The work has just begun. And with that, I pray you find your own truth, your own path, and step forward in the light of it.